All right, I need a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda if there aren't any changes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ross, seconded by Dumbia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have no presentations or introductions tonight. We'll move on to item number 4, approve the minutes of the October 8th, 2024 City Council meeting and the October 8th, 2024 Special City Council meeting closed session. Anybody have any changes or corrections needed to those? Seeing none, I would take a motion and second to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Von Sluis, second by Councilmember Dumbia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, request to be heard. We have one message on the clipboard. Jane, would you come forward, please? State your name and address at the microphone for the record.
You have to be close to me.
No.
I am Jane Eggerdahl, and I live on 14th Street at 103.
Good.
I go with my 3 minutes now?
No.
Okay. I got it to 2 minutes and 45 seconds, to be clear. So you all know things about city leadership that I do not know, and I want to acknowledge this. I just ask you to hear me out and have some openness to my perspective and experience. You are welcome to respectfully disagree. I believe all of us in this room are here because we care about the well-being of Faribault and its residents. I personally love living in this town. I received a 7-page citation 10 days ago about a few minor repairs on my garage coming out of your new city policy. I do not have an issue with the citation. My question's about the packaging of it, and I want the council to know how it affected me and how I feel it might affect my fellow citizens. This is not about the person who signed it. I believe it took a village to write this letter, and it was sent with the best intentions to help Faribault. It felt assumed that I did not want to clean up or fix up my property. This is not true. I bought this structurally sound house, a 100-year-old house, 25 years ago in hopes of rehabbing it. My dad, a college professor, had built a house as a hobby. He started helping me, but shortly after, he unexpectedly died. A few years later, my handyman brother started helping me, and he unexpectedly died. I ran out of people to help me, and I just kind of stopped working on it. The pain of these deaths started showing outwardly in me becoming clutter challenged. Hoarding behavior comes out of a trauma and loss. I had been an organized person, but my brain had secretly changed on me without asking for my permission. I understand this policy works for Hopkins. I think there are some differences here in Faribault. I know a lot of you personally. We are a smaller community. If you don't directly know a person getting one of these citation letters, you will probably know somebody they know. To me, we are a Faribault family. Professional and non-professional friends read this letter. They had the same response as I did. It came across as confusing, very unnecessarily threatening, and paralyzing to the recipient. If this is sent out to people who do not have the mental, physical, financial, or language capacities to do what is required, or to even understand this letter, is this truly helpful to Faribault? I'm guessing that you all care about some law-abiding person who is a senior citizen or not, lives alone and gets stressed easily. How would you feel if they received a long letter for a few small repairs stating that now they are being processed by the county prosecuting attorney for legal action in court, and that they are strongly threatened that their house will be seized by eminent domain if they don't do whatever is confusing to understand? It truly left me feeling that the Faribault I love wanted to kick me out of my house and into the streets. As for the neighbors who feel they are helping Faribault not only by having a perfect place, but also for reporting little things wrong in everyone else's place around them, is there a way the city can buffer some of these complaints so that a few houses aren't always being targeted by the same people when there are homes throughout our town with same or worse issues that are never ticketed? I care about my fellow citizens. I don't want anyone else to get a letter like this. Again, my main request today is that you each read this letter and rethink if you want to use this method of fear enforcement in our community. Thank you for your time in hearing me out. Yes, I do still love Faribault, and I would like to hand out the letter to each of you if I may.
Sure.
It wasn't so bad.
No, you're under your 3 minutes, so.
Put on the front.
Thanks,
I
Jane.
found very, very threatening.
Okay.
Or what was very
Terrific. So we'll review this at a later time and have staff follow up with you. Thanks, Gene. Right, that was only the one on the request to be heard. We'll move on to consent agenda items 6A through 6M.
Can we leave?
And stay too. But yes. All right. Anybody have anything they want pulled for discussion on here? I want to thank the anonymous $10,000 donor to Park and Rec. That'll help out with programs. So, thank you to whoever you are. Okay.
That's all I wanted to bring up also, is to thank that person. So I will make a move to approve the consent agenda. Items 6A through 6M.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Ross, seconded by Councilmember Karen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move on to items for discussion. Ordinance 2024-16, amend Chapter 28, Division 4 of the Code of Ordinances regarding disconnection of water for non-payment. Second reading. Over to Administrator Kinzer.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading of an ordinance that would remove the language that basically says on a monthly basis we'll prepare a disconnection list and disconnect water for non-payment. However, we still do reserve the right to do that there would be certain situations where that still might be a necessary thing. In order to supplement, what would happen typically with the disconnect process, we will be using existing language in that same code section in Chapter 28, Division 4, that provides the council the ability to provide a special assessment in place of disconnection. And so that is how we will treat things moving forward, except for those special circumstances that still might require a disconnect.
Administrator Kinzer, any questions on that? Councilmember Royal Ross.
Thank you. Administrator Kinzer, I got a question throughout the public. But so if we understand this correctly, an amount will build up over some time. It's assessed to the property owner. And then from that point forward, do we start billing again normally, or how?
Yeah.
How does the cycle work?
Basically, as the next time then there's usage that runs through the meter that gets picked up on a reading, it would be billed out in the normal billing cycle. And so, yeah, assuming it's an occupied property, then that's what you would continue to see, is that we would essentially clear what's due as a special assessment if not paid. But I should say that both tenant and landlord can get the notices. And so there should still be notification sort of along the way, where there would hopefully be some conversation between a tenant and landlord about what's going on with the non-payment of the water. So we think that there's still that opportunity there, but essentially, yeah, once a balance was cleared off as a special assessment, as long as there was continuing usage, there'd be a bill the next month for whatever amount was due.
And once that amount is put on special assessment, then the account starts at zero again.
Effectively.
Builds back up.
Correct.
Could end up being a second.
Correct.
Okay. Yep, I think I can answer the question now. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on this item? Not, I would take a motion.
So moved.
Second. A motion for approval by Councilmember Teal, seconded by Councilmember Von Sluis. And this is a roll call.
Councilmember Karen.
Aye.
Dumbuya.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
Von Sluis.
Aye.
Spooner.
Aye.
Teal.
Aye.
Mayor Bracek.
Aye. That passes second reading. Now I need a motion and a second to approve summary publication of ordinance 2024-16.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Spooner, second by Councilmember Karen. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Move on to resolution 2024-209, approve the assignment of an additional investor restructuring the ownership entity and mortgage subordination related to the property at 311 Central Avenue. Over to Director Wanberg.
Mayor and Council, last year the Council authorized the transfer of $500,000 from the general fund over to the EDA, or the Economic Development Authority, to administer a special commercial rehabilitation loan for Faribault Downtown Central, or FDC. The loan agreement really follows the city's business subsidy policy, which requires the recipient, in this case FDC, to own the properties associated with that loan for 5 years. In this case, 311 Central is one of the properties that FTC has that could benefit from that $500,000 loan from the city over to be administered by the EDA. So at this point, we need to consider action before that loan, that change in ownership could happen. FTC is looking to sell a part of 311 to 3 additional investors called Faribault Partners LLC. Faribault Partners LLC would have 67% of the ownership in 311, and FTC would remain with the 33%. But again, because of the business subsidy policy that says you need to hold on for that property for 5 years, we are asking that you consider action on FTC's request to restructure the ownership to allow this ownership group to come in. The attached resolution that you have before you was similar to one that went to the EDA last week. EDA did approve that resolution to allow for that restructuring, but again, the council provided additional funding, so we're asking that you consider that action tonight. If you were to approve that and then the ownership were to change in the next 5 years, that would again have to come forward to the council. But the business subsidy policy does say 5 years. So the resolution that you have before you, basically under the whereases or recitals, recognizes the importance of improving the downtown, and recognizes that restructuring this would facilitate improvements to 311. And then under the now therefore it be resolved, the property located at 311 would be exempted from those terms of the loan agreements that would prevent the sale, transfer, or conveyance of the property. But again, it would only be for this transaction only. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and our attorney is here as well to be able to speak to this matter in more detail.
Okay, Councilmember Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 questions, Director Weinberg. The first one is, this does not interrupt the 5-year period that they have to own the property, correct? In other words, we're almost through 1 full year, so it doesn't interrupt that and make it start over or anything.
Right, so the original agreement was for 5 years. This would exempt them for that 5-year period, right? Does that make sense?
It continue, the 5-year period does not go away. It's still there.
Yes.
We're 1 year into it. They have 4 years left.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
The
Perfect.
original agreement stays in place.
Perfect, okay. And then does Faribault or people, are they now, are they on the hook with the other partners for the city loan?
That's correct.
They would be. They're assuming it. Yes, they're
Okay,
they're joining in with FTC, so now all those parties are responsible.
then I'm good with it. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions on this? Good conversation at the EDA about it, and going back to the HRA, is that correct, sir? All right. With that, I need a motion.
Mayor Ratchik,
Councilmember Ross,
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-209.
Second.
I got a motion by Ross, seconded by Councilmember Von Sluis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
That passes. We'll move on to Resolution 2024-211, approve Corey Newby DBA Urban Flea Market Developers Agreement. Back over to Director Wanberg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At your October 8th meeting, the council directed city staff to work with Corey Newby, the property owner of 15 3rd Avenue Southwest, or the former Divine Mercy Catholic School Elementary School, to allow for the operation of the business urban flea market at the subject property to open. The attached resolution that you have before you authorizes the city to execute a development agreement and with the developer to be able to get in there with the understanding that there are still a number of things that need to be done. There are a couple of items here in that developer's agreement, and we could call it an early start agreement, but something that the city would have to be clear that these are things that normally get done before we issue a building permit. We're in a position right now where there are a number of things like improvements to the parking lot and other kinds of putting in the curbing and doing the bituminous. It's not going to happen this year. Putting in landscaping, it's not going to happen this year. Corey Newby, as you know, at the last meeting that you had a discussion on, is feeling, the pressure to open as soon as possible, and would like to move forward. The best way that we can figure to move that forward is to have some sort of an agreement that very clearly states, here are the things that we expect from you related to this. Corey Newby is here today. There are a number of things that he does have concerns about with the agreement. We have our attorney here to talk a little bit about that. Scott can get into more detail, but the things that you see in the agreement that you have before you tonight are basically the same things that you see in virtually every early start agreement or every subdivision agreement that we have. A number of these things relate to statute and our rights to be able to inspect properties, do all those kinds of things. But it's clearly spelling it out so people are understanding that situation. So what we are recommending is that you go through this. If you have any questions, Scott is available to answer those questions for you in detail about this. There are a couple things that we left blank in there, one of which is dealing with an escrow. Typically, what our ordinance says, that we can consider issuing a temporary certificate of occupancy, letting someone in there, particularly if because of weather, like if sod is not put in and it's January, someone wants to move in their house, we know they can't get sod right now. So we say, how much is that going to be to put the sod in? We require by our ordinance 110% escrow. We've left that blank because it's we don't know exactly what it is going to take to be able to put in the curbing and all the things that would be required for this project to get a temporary certificate of occupancy, but let's roughly say $50,000. Mr. Newby is feeling like right now that's not possible to be able to do that, but you could put something else in, right? If you want to take 10% of that and say $5,000, you would have the option to state that. Now, one of the things I've talked with Mr. Newby about is this a council meeting. It's not a work session. It's not a night to negotiate back and forth on a number of things. But one comment would be, would you be willing to, what would you be willing to go with an escrow if we can put a number in? And then beyond that, I think, you can, again, ask questions of staff, Scott, Riggs, and me, regarding the development agreement and what we have in there. And if you choose to move forward with that, we can bring this forward, but Mr. Newby does not have to sign it. But at this point, too, we're not able to move forward with a certificate of occupancy and the other kinds of, or temporary certificate of occupancy, till we have this issue resolved. So depending on where you're at tonight, you have the option of either looking at the resolution that you have and moving forward and maybe giving us some direction on that escrow amount, which could be anywhere from 0 to 110%, or anywhere in between, right? 5,000, whatever you think should fit in there. But beyond that, again, if we get into a lot of things where we have to work through that, I would suggest that you continue the meeting and we go to a work session and we try to work through this. I know Mr. Newby is wanting to get in sooner than later, but does very strongly feel that there's some concerns with the language that we have. With that,
I could just jump in with a couple.
Attorney Riggs,
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, after the last work session, we had kind of suggested a solution to get there, or to get Mr. Newby into his property, where staff could allow that to happen, but still have control to make sure things get done. In working with staff, we could have called, as Dave said, this agreement a temporary occupancy agreement, development agreement, an early access agreement, whatever we call it a development agreement. We've done in other situations like this where businesses, age, places like that have all wanted to get access to buildings inside some property before we could issue a certificate of occupancy. That's what this agreement does. It's the same agreement that we've used terms. I discussed briefly that typically you do have an escrow amount in there to make sure there's some enforcement mechanism. There's also a recoupment of cost mechanism, which is our standard language. It's what we do in our code and what we have in all of these agreements. Beyond that, what we did is simplify the agreement, but included the applications that Mr. Newby has submitted and reviewed, and those dictate the items that have not been completed at this point in time. As Dave points out, can't be completed during the winter. So that's what we've got before you. I think it matches what I tried to explain at the last work session. I think it's reasonable in that regard. I understand Mr. Newby in conversations with Dave has had some concerns. But it is the solution we've used elsewhere.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but if I could just add one other thing that I failed to mention. So in your packet is letters from the city planner with site plan review saying, we need additional information on this, that, and the other thing. That letter was prepared, as part of the packet before we had some changes that Mr. Newby has made. He is showing on his site plan that he submitted, meeting 10-foot setbacks, having the curbing in. Those were two of the things that were listed in the variance request that was before him, before the council. So there are a number of items that he has said he will address, and he has that shown on his site plan that he has submitted. Now, the issue that Scott has raised is, again, if we move forward, what this agreement says is we recognize you can't do those right now. But this is saying, this agreement is basically saying you need to do these things in the future. Or you can get a full certificate of occupancy. You need to complete that. And there's recourses in this agreement. And those are some of the concerns that Mr. Newby raised, but it is fairly standard in terms of how we've done practice with these similar situations in the city.
We all received an email from Mr. Newby about access
Yes, I did.
issues. So what about that?
So we have and I will let Scott Riggs, if I can, answer it. So the question is, the concern about in the typical development agreement, it says that we have the right to access the site and look at it to make sure things are getting done the way they're supposed to be getting done. That would be standard in any kind of building permit or any kind of action that we issue to verify that we have the right to go onto the property for those purposes.
It essentially is part and parcel of our building permit process. Right of the building inspector. There are provisions in here I could delete. If I deleted them, it wouldn't matter. They're still in our code or they're still in state statute. We try to have them all there, so if somebody has to search through other documents to look for that. It says it here, and I can probably cite in most of the paragraphs where in the city code this language is, where in the city code, or where in state statute. It looks a little more burdensome than the agreement really is, because a lot of these provisions would apply whether we had an agreement or not. Whether we need an agreement, if it was simply a building permit, that provision as to access
Other questions for our direction on the escrow?
Mayor Vracek, I know you said it could be anywhere from 0 to 110%. Is there a standard? I mean, is there a typical?
our standard is 110%.
Oh.
That's what the city code requires. So you've got that or less.
Okay.
We have a reasonable enforcement process described in, that's what we have in all our development agreements. So if we had $0, you still have the ability to enforce and use that part of this agreement, our city code, to do it. I don't know if 0 is the right number, but if you had 0, we still have the ability to enforce this agreement. Typically, you do have an escrow. That's why the code requires it, so you can do it very quickly. Not as quick using the other provision we have in here, but we still have that available. So it is really up to you as a discretionary decision if you want to deviate from our.
Is this escrow, let's say we go with a percentage, assume, is that based on a bid amount that the property owner would get for said improvements or whatever?
Typically, it is valuing what the improvements appear to be. Again, that's somewhat subjective, I guess is a way to put it. That's why I think you have some discretion.
Question, so I'll turn it back over.
I can understand that Mr. Newby has some issue with 110% escrow, because I can just imagine how much money needs to be raised to just get everything started. So, but if there's under enforcement options available, then I would say just with symbolic $5,000 or maybe zero even, but just to help Mr. Newby out on that particular item.
I was thinking 10, so I'm with you on just something to 10,000. He gets it back provided that he does all the work. Other thoughts? Is that a fine number?
Those work. That works.
We ask Mr. Newby if he has any comments on this item. Okay. Mr. Newby, do you have any comments?
Corey Newby, 15 3rd Avenue Southwest. So one of my big concerns for this is I get that a building That's what they have done, but it really has to be looked at. There's too many what ifs in there, and I took the word out, we won't enforce that. So, for what was given, I couldn't sign it regardless of what the escrow price was. So I hope I submitted a fully compliant site plan now, so chapter 4 says a planning commissioner has the ability, it doesn't say anything about escrow or anything to do a temporary occupancy. I've given everything they asked for, no variance, no anything. So, I don't know, that's my thought. That's appreciate everybody's time on it. I know you guys are probably sick of seeing me, but I'm not sick of seeing you guys, but I want to see you on a more positive note. So I appreciate you guys.
Well, we are trying to work in your benefit here. I mean, if you look at this, this is a temporary certificate, so it means that we're not holding you to everything that we would for you to move into your building. This is a standard developer agreement. You're a developer at this point. You're not an entrepreneur. You're not a flea market runner. You're a developer. And this is the same thing that every developer goes through in the city of Faribault. And we're trying our best to work with you. And we know that things come up. There's been buildings that, you know, people have been cited on downtown because they can't get a stone cut for 6 months. It happens. You know, every developer has issues. But at some point, you have to put your John Hancock down so that you can get moving. And I understand that you don't like the wording on some of this formal language, but you need to put a John Hancock to it so that you can get moving also. This is standard boilerplate stuff. If you can't get your grass in 9 months because we've got a torrential downpour like we did last year, then you come back to us and say, hey, wait a second here. Can I get an extension on this? There's wording that we can work with. But at some point, you need to put it down and get moving. And that's where we're at. So either you need to work with staff and get this figured out so that you can get open, or we're not going to get anywhere and you're going to lose more and more time. Other comments, questions? All right, well, I think we're probably going to approve this agreement. Anybody not approving it? And then you'll just need to work with staff. So, Councilmember Ross?
Do we need to put in an escrow amount, or is that really the only request of
Well,
you guys
Mr. Newby
tonight?
asked for more than 9 months. You certainly could put in 12 months if you want. Summer cycle if you want. But yes, the only blank line we
9 months would put it into July. I mean, and I don't care if we extend it out a month.
yeah.
Yes, kind of that we should probably put something in for an escrow, even though the rest of it does have teeth without it. Go back out. I mean, just go back out. We've had 5,000 recommended. We've had 10,000 recommended. I think let's start there. Let's get that solidified. I think we can.
Which one would you like to see? Let's start there.
I'd be willing to go with 5.
Okay. 5.
I'm willing to go 5 and give him another 3 months.
5 and 12 months.
Yep.
That in 5 and 12? 5 and 12. There you go. 5 and 12.
Mayor Voracek.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-211 with the changes of increasing the time allotment to 12 months and the escrow amount of $5,000.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Ross, seconded by
Second.
Councilmember Teal.
Ask a question on
Yes, you may.
staff. What happens if he does not sign this?
You're back to where you are, where you have an application pending. Still there that we'd have to deal with at some point. You have a staff recommendation on that. We're here. You're doing this. And you would deal with that matter, and then you're back to square one.
This becomes null and void.
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Ross, seconded by Councilmember Teal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes on our end. All right, we'll move on to Resolution 2024-210. Approve a restructuring of the ownership entity related to the redevelopment of Lot 1 and Lot 2, Block 1, Midwest First Edition, Rice County, Minnesota. Back over to Director Wanberg.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And Lot 1 and Lot 2, Block 1, Midwest First Edition is really the former farmer seed and nursery site. KK&G is the developer of that site, and they entered into various agreements and received various approvals to redevelop that site for the Midwest indoor storage climate control that you see going up right now. But they also have the approved PUD and approved plans for the apartment building. Now, if you recall, we've got significant deed funding, or the applicant received significant deed funding through the redevelopment fund as well as the cleanup fund for that site. But there was a time limit associated with that. And we are getting very close to where if that apartment building does not go up, Deed is going to claw that money back. Now that, the applicant is responsible for that, but we are also, we administer that program. So we're involved in that as well and need to be able to deal with that. Nobody wants to claw that money back. They have a plan, it's been approved, they just need to get it built. And now they have brought in another investor, so they would be 78%, KK&G would remain as 78% ownership stake in that apartment building. But 22% of it will be with TLS Companies, which is the contractor that will construct that apartment building. So we have, similar to the other kinds of things, we have agreements with KK&G. Now, if this happens, we have to be able to modify that agreement. Say we're okay with bringing on TLS to do that. So the resolution that you have before you restructures the ownership related to that redevelopment and get started with that apartment building. I do want to note that they have submitted for a building permit for that. Their full intention is they want to be getting that foundation in by November 1st, which we're getting awfully close to. We have to get a number of agreements changed, including the contract for private development. That needs to be some changes done to that as well as recorded. So we've got a lot of work that we have to do in a short period of time for them to get into the ground with the foundation. But if we don't get something done soon, there is going to be the issue where we're going to be concerned about what happens with that deed funding. So we are recommending that you approve the resolution that you have before you tonight to get this process started.
Perfect. Thank you, Director Wunberg, and over to Councilmember Ross.
Thank you, Mayor. There's no mapping or anything in our packet. So if I remember correctly, this is still just one big, basically square property, and it's not split into two.
It is split into two.
It is, okay. And so the apartment is on one plot and storage is on the other plot, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so this TLS, they would be a 22% owner of the apartment plot. I don't know.
Plot 2, that's correct. Mayor and Council, one thing I do want to clear up, though, is that that was a PUD. And if you recall, they could not fit all the parking on that, and the indoor storage facility doesn't need a whole lot of parking. So that spills across property line into the development with Midwest Indoor Storage. So those are things that Scott Riggs, City Attorney, and the Planning Department, Community Economic Development have to work through with these agreements to make sure that all of this is understood.
Okay, yeah, I'm okay with
Any other questions for staff on this item? Okay. Take a motion and a second to do something.
Mayor Vracek,
Councilmember Teal.
make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-210.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Teal, second by Councilmember Von Sluis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We have no bids tonight. Board Commission reports, announcements, and project updates. Anything? Exciting coming up this weekend? Faribault Boo Crawl before our next one.
Well, we do have to remember that we will not be back before November 5th. So you vote on November 5th or on or before. And then I know the Buckham West, commonly known as the Senior Center, does have their annual meeting coming up. I don't have it in my calendar, but I believe it's coming up in the first week of November. So.
Okay.
The Rice County Fair also has their annual meeting coming up, November 6th, which is a public meeting.
Which one are you going to?
I have to go to the fair.
You won't be here for the meeting. Okay. Our next meeting will be November 6th. All right, and I want to thank the Girl Scouts for hanging out with us tonight. I know this was really exciting, but it's nice to be able to learn a little bit about local government and what it is to be a all the fun things that we do, although it was a small snapshot. It'll take years to learn what we actually do. Thanks for hanging out with us. Anything else? Take a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ross, seconded by Councilmember Dumia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Good night and good luck.
Personal thing. We decorated the Christmas tree last year.